Good afternoon, everybody. Corey here. Right now it is 1:34 in the afternoon, and it is the 4th of January 2017. And right now we are going to go over our first requested read, How to Stay Young by Christian D. Larson. And this says, "What the prophet has dreamed, the scientist will prove to be true." And this is from the Scholar Selects. Now, before we get started, I want to go ahead and read the back. I also want to thank Miss Kitty Cat for requesting me to read this book. The only book I had read by Christian D. Larson was How the Mind Works. So we're very, very excited to go over what this book has in store for us, especially after the books we had just read. Okay, because one thing I want to talk about is from you, okay, in mind, okay, and also the 7 chakras, the anatomy of our mind, okay, the structure of what our mind is made out of. Okay, and Charles F. Hannell talks about immortality, okay, that the cells of what we are made out of, the single-celled organism cannot die. It's impossible for a single-celled organism to die because all it looks towards is duplicating itself. Okay, and when it duplicates itself and becomes trillions and trillions upon itself, that's how we became made. Okay, but since we became like so far in our evolution with our cells and tissues, that we ourselves need to learn how to take care of this thing which we are living in. Because if our liver is not working to up to par as to where our pancreas is, then we're going to pose some problems, because those tissues aren't going to be able to work together to its full extent, and you're going to have a lot of issues when it comes to the functioning of your body. Okay, because remember how we've learned that these cells are all intelligent. Okay, he even says it. I love the example that he puts. He even says when you eat food, for example, you don't feed your body. Your body feeds itself. All you do is eat. You enjoy whatever it is that you're eating, but the cells are the ones that choose. Okay, I need carbs. Okay, I need protein. This is what I need from this. Okay, your cells are the ones that make the decision, because they're endowed with their own specific intelligence. Okay, and us as awareness living within this body, okay, each one of these cells are choosing their own, just choosing its own within your own personal universe, just as we choose what we're going to do within the entire universe. And okay, what else? Mind being a system of vibration, that it's nothing but energy. Okay, an electromagnetic body. Okay, and our physical body is nothing but a manifestation of this electromagnetic body, because everything in nature is made out of electromagnetism. Okay, and our physical self is well, like we've already said, this a manifestation of our mind, body, our vibratory system, okay, of what we have within ourselves, because our mind is what separates us from every other creature on this planet. It's not our body, it's our mind, okay, because there are a lot of creatures that are stronger than us. A lion would probably tear me up, but just the fact that our mind is different, and that's what makes us at a higher level of existence than a lion. A king of the jungle that is more powerful than anything. But since we have a mind that they don't, we have an intelligence that they don't, and simply because we could think at a higher plane that they can, that's what puts us at a higher level in the food chain. It's amazing, this mind that we have. Okay, and also the chakras. We've been going over the chakras. We were in the middle of the wheels of life. We've read the first part of it. Okay, we've gone over the chakra systems and the anatomy of what each and every single one of them is, because along we have 7 major nerve ganglia along your nervous system, as well as 7 major endocrine glands. Okay, and these all respond to your 7 chakras. Okay, the energy centers within the body, and these chakras in turn are responsible for taking in energy and figuring out what something is, and then in turn releasing that energy back into the atmosphere. And it's very interesting because she used the term aura being the median between our internal world and our external world, because it is through our aura that this energy field that's surrounding each and every single one of us, this electromagnetic energy field, it takes in vibrations that are being received from outside of us, and then we, like sound, for example, we hear the vibrations of sound, okay, and as this sound travels along the mind of the universe, this ether, this ethereal fluid, okay, in a form of vibrations, it is then picked up by our own personal consciousness, and then we in turn decide whatever that sound means to us. And also with healing, self-healing, and the placebo effect, that we could literally heal ourselves simply by changing our mind and believing in that which we are thinking. For example, the placebo effect. Somebody is giving a sugar pill, them thinking it's a specific type of pill, them believing that it's going to help them in some way, even though it's nothing but a sugar pill. Okay, that belief that the thing is going to help them is what helps that person, because their mind moves into that state of vibration. They believe it's going to happen. Okay, and they move into that state of mind. And since the body is nothing but a form of since all matter is simply a form of vibration, and our body is a physical manifestation of our mind, our personal system of vibration, as we think higher thoughts and we think more positive and we're more happier and healthier in whatever it is that we're thinking. Okay, remember that thinking is a vibration. So once we're thinking those specific vibrations, our body in turn will respond to that by since all form is simply a manifestation of a rate of vibration. Once you change the vibration, you will change the form. Okay, I want to use the example that we got from You by Charles F. Hannell with the drum head and sand, that they were playing sand, or they were playing a specific tune, a vibration through the drum head. Okay, and the sand that they put on the drum head in turn took a specific form due to this certain type of vibration. And then when they changed the sound to a different frequency, the sand on the drum in turn took a different form. Okay, your body does the same thing. Your brain does the same thing by whatever it is that you're thinking, by whatever state of mind that you are in. It's very interesting. Okay, those were the main points that I wanted to bring into this from what we've been reading before, because everything just it works out perfectly from what we've learned from these books, and now we're going to be reading what we're going to learn from here. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and read the back. And it says, this work has been selected by scholars as being culturally important and is part of the knowledge base of civilizations as we know it. This work was reproduced by the original artifact and remains as true to the original work as possible. Therefore, you will see the original copyright references, library stamps, as most of these works have been housed in our most important libraries around the world, and other notations in the work. This work is in the public domain in the United States of America and possibly other nations. Within the United States, you may freely copy and distribute this work, as no entity, individual or corporate, has a copyright on the body of the work. As a reproduction of the historical artifact, this work may contain missing or blurred pages. Excuse the noise, my cat's playing with these bags that I have right next to my bed. I personally use these for trash. Moving on. As a reproduction of the historical artifact, this work may contain missing or blurred pages, poor pictures, errant marks, etc. Scholars believe, and we concur, that this work is important enough to be preserved, reproduced, and made generally available to the public. We appreciate your support of the preservation process and thank you for being an important part of keeping this knowledge alive and relevant. How exciting. This is definitely exciting. This is the very first time I'm reading this book. Okay. We appreciate your understandings of the imperfections in the preservations process and hope you enjoy this valuable book. So what it's saying, there's a little bit of imperfections within this book because this book was written, when was it written? It was written in 19-something. Hold on, let me look it up really quick before we get started. Okay. So, going to Safari, How to Stay Young by Christian D. Larson. And Christian D. Larson, for those of you who don't know, was a metaphysical teacher back in the 1900s. This book was written in 1908, a few years before he wrote How the Mind Works. This is cool. So, with all that being said, let's go ahead and go over the introduction. And it says, conclusive reasons why man should learn to stay young. So, how to stay young. Introduction. Conclusive reasons why man should learn to stay young. The world is changing its thoughts. In the past, those who believed in the perpetuation of youth were among the isolated few, and were looked upon with suspicion by the many. In the present, the great majority desire to perpetuate their youth, and most of these believe it is possible. This change of thought is due to two great causes. First, we are fast eliminating the term impossible from our vocabulary, and second, we have made several important discoveries in the chemical life, both physical and metaphysical, of the human system. And that's very interesting how he says in the discoveries of the chemical life, both physical and metaphysical, because what have we learned in Mental Chemistry by Charles F. Hannell? And for those of you who haven't checked that book out, we read it a little bit over a year ago, and we shared it and we talked about it. But he talks about how the body, this physical manifestation of what we are, is nothing but a conglomeration of chemical reactions. And he's saying right now, the discovery of the chemical life, both physical and metaphysical, of the human system. We are living in an age of wonders and have come to the conclusion that almost anything is possible, especially if it can add to the welfare, the beauty, the joy, and the advancement of human existence. We are convinced that life is not made for sorrow. We now believe that sorrow is but a temporary creation of man gone astray. Man gone astray, people who live in sorrow, people who aren't aware of the truth of things, that when we it's okay to be, things happen that make us feel bad or sad every once in a while. But if you live in that state, if you live as a sad person, you're gonna have a sad environment. You're gonna have a sad, you're not gonna be healthy. You're gonna be sad, in every direction, in every way possible, because it is through the mind, and everything that is happening through the mind expresses itself in the form of what we are. We are convinced that life is not made for sorrow. We now believe that sorrow is but a temporary creation of man gone astray, away from the truth. We do not believe that this world is a vale of tears, nor that we must suffer in the present in order that we may gain bliss in the future. We do not gather figs from thistles, neither can a life of pain be a direct cause of a life of pleasure. It is an immutable law that like causes produce like effects, and we are beginning to intelligently use this law in shaping our life and destiny. Remember how we've been learning about this law, that our thoughts being the cause of the majority of things, and that everything else that happens being the effects around whatever it is that we are thinking. We've learned this in the Master Key System. We've learned this in all of these books that we are learning, that thinking, when we think, we are setting our mind in motion. We are setting it into activity. Okay, we're giving this thing, this power of what we are, a direction to move in. Because when we think with mental pictures, and once we have that picture in the mind of what's possible for us, that gives us inspiration towards moving in that direction. You're able to see the vision of something, and then boom, from there you have that cause of moving in that direction. And then as you continuously move, the effects will in turn bring themselves and group themselves around you, shaping our life and destiny. The thinking world today is convinced that life is intended by the creator of life to be, quote, a thing of beauty and a joy forever, end quote. We therefore conclude that anything that can add to the joy and the beauty of life must be possible. That the perpetuation of youth can add to the joy and the beauty of human life is a self-evident fact. And to be consistent in our thinking, we must conclude that the perpetuation of youth is possible. An ideal life, the life we picture as a real life, is unthinkable in a world where the age-producing process is constantly at work. Him saying that, he says, being able to picture yourself in a perfect state of being is unthinkable in a world where the age-producing process is constantly at work. In the belief that we're supposed to age and grow old and die. To live as he should live, man must learn to stay young. This is becoming a worldwide conviction, and in consequence thereof, many minds of many modes of research are diligently at work trying to find the great secret of eternal youth. Many of these are workings in the belief that the secret is to be found in the world of material elements, while a constantly growing number are working in the belief that the power of mind alone can perpetuate the youth of the body. The great facts in nature, however, are never one-sided. They are invariably both physical and metaphysical, both mind and both body, spirit and matter, mind and body. And they, physical and metaphysical, they have soul as well as form, spirit as well as substance, and act through physical as well as mental laws. And that's very interesting too, because how he says the great facts of nature, because we do live, remember how we had just talked about in the Wheels of Life, Shiva and Shakti in Hindu mythology, that Shiva being the universal mind, this universal consciousness which, the spirit of everything, has endowed itself within everything and has given life to everything. And then Shakti being the nature, the material part of this realm that expresses Shakti, or expresses Shiva. Shakti gives Shiva form, while Shiva expresses itself through Shakti. It's very interesting because pro-life and pro-spirit, we're going over that in the tantric texts, and that we're supposed to live for both body and mind, not just for one. Because if we're only living for one, then us ourselves are not complete, because we're completely neglecting a physical part of who we are. If we only live for the mind, and if we only live for the body, we're completely neglecting this part of who we are, the real part of who we are. The secret of eternal youth cannot be found through a study of the body alone, nor the mind alone. It does not have its sole existence in the elements of the earth, nor does it exercise its power exclusively through those forces of nature that cannot be seen. That something that perpetuates youth can, under natural conditions, perpetuate youth, and as this something is an inseparable part of life itself, it can be found only through a study of the process of life as expressed through the whole man. The process of life as expressed through the man. You have to look for the thing that expresses itself through the man, and not just the man itself. For the same reason, the law through which the perpetuation of youth may be promoted can be applied only through the living of life as life is intended to be lived. That something that produces youth and perpetuates youth has been discovered, and like all great facts in nature, it is not only very simple, but abides at our very feet. We did not see it, however, because there is a tendency in man to look afar off whenever he is in search of the great and the wonderful. The wonders at his feet, at his own feet, and in his own immediate world are therefore overlooked, at last for a time. But for that something that produces youth, the time is enforced, seclusion is at an end. It has been found and is being incorporated as a part of exact science. The fundamental law through which the perpetuation of youth may be promoted is one of the basic laws in nature, and being basic, it is a law that man will not be required to apply. Nature already applies it for him, this law in the life of man. All that is required of man is to conform the living of his life to this law, natural law. Now, one thing I want to talk about before we move on, remember how we were learning with, going over with Charles F. Hannah, and he talks about the stability of natural law, okay, since the natural law works with precision, and it is so accurate and precise, and nothing can change the functions or structures of how these laws work. Okay, and he talks about how the stability of these laws working the way that they work, these set principles that never vary, that is our stability, because once we bring ourselves in subjection to these principles, learn how they work and how we can apply or manifest them within our own lives, then boom, it's going to happen. But we need to learn how to bring ourselves into unity with how these laws work, because if we don't, then we're not going to be able to what is this word I'm looking for? We're not going to be able to use these laws to our advantage, because we're not aware of the process of how they work for us. You know, these laws work for us. Work for us. Always remember that they work for you. Okay, they're never against you. Okay, these laws work for you. And if something happens that doesn't quite seem very appealing to whatever it is, excuse me, sorry. Something weird just happened. I had the hiccups, and then I had the anyway. If something happens that just doesn't seem like you know, then that's fine. You know, don't worry about it. Okay, let's go ahead and continue. This can readily be accomplished by any person, whether he be highly educated or not. It is therefore evident that anyone can learn to stay young, and there are many conclusive reasons why everybody should learn this most wonderful art. When we learn to perpetuate youth, we shall add immeasurably to the joy of living. And since man is made for happiness, everything can increase his happiness should be made a part of his life. And one thing I want to talk about with happiness, okay, I don't care how much money you make, I don't care what kind of car you're driving, I don't care where you live. If you're not happy with any of those things, you are not a success. Period. Okay, life is meant to be enjoyed. We are created to be happy with whatever it is that we have. We are created to be happy with whatever it is that we're doing. And if you're not happy with what you're doing, what is it that you're doing? What are you doing it for? You know, if you're doing it for money, then that's wrong. You know, do it. Yes, do it for the money right now, but figure out what makes you happy. One thing I really try to inspire people to do is to find their passion and their purpose first, before they decide to go out and make their millions, because they're going to be able to make their millions from following their passion and their purpose. Money always follows the man who has a purpose, man or woman, I shall say. And also, I want to read a quote by Christian D. Larson. He says, "The greatest of all good is happiness, and heaven is here and now. That even if a man has nothing left to give, he can still give happiness." End quote by Christian D. Larson. So let's continue. The consciousness of youth will not only deepen and enlarge the consciousness of joy, but the perpetuation of the consciousness of youth will eliminate completely all those ills that come directly from old age conditions. These ills are almost too numerous to mention, but we can realize at a single moment's thought what a burden will be lifted from the lives of the race when complete emancipation from these ills has been secured. Man would also gain freedom from all these adverse conditions that come indirectly from the aging process, and as these are likewise too numerous to mention, we have another most powerful reason why everybody should learn to stay young. And one thing I also want to talk about before we continue even further, and how, moving back to how, yes, this body, this physical being of what we are is nothing but chemical reactions, okay, and I want to talk about thoughts and thinking, because he's talking about how to stay young, and we are talking about the mind, that it is the mind that we have to that it's not just the body we need to work with to stay young, but it is also the mind that we need to work with. Because I'm a firm believer that if you go out and eat that Snickers, you're not going to be able to be as healthy as you would if you went and ate some rice and chicken instead. Okay, I'm a firm believer of that because I know it to be true. Because if I go out and eat Snickers, it makes me feel sick. But when I go out and eat healthy, I feel a lot better and healthier. You know, even if, you know, yes, we're also dealing with the mind, but remember the pro-life part, the nature part of it. You know, our muscles cannot build off of fat. They must need protein. You have to eat protein, regardless of how much you think about the muscle growing. It needs protein to grow. Okay, but going back to thinking, okay, and thoughts, okay, what was I gonna say? Oh man, I'm sorry. Indirectly from the aging. Yes, thinking. And that since the body is nothing but chemical reactions, think about, you know, when you're thinking about something that you don't want to happen, you know, you start to worry about it, and then you start, you know, feeling worried because your body's releasing certain chemicals, or your body's releasing certain chemicals within itself because of what you were thinking. Remember that all form is a result of vibrations, and once you're entering into that state of vibration, your body responds by making it that way within itself. You know, for example, if you sit down and think about a happy event that happened to you, or a lovely memory that you remember, and when you're thinking about it and you feel good about it, and then all of a sudden you start feeling better. Okay, it's because your body's reacting to it by its endocrine glands releasing specific hormones within the bloodstream, going through each and every single one of the cells in the body, making you feel a certain way. It's interesting. It's very interesting. So, let us continue. When great minds come to a place where they have sufficient knowledge and experience to turn their talents to some use that is really worthwhile, they usually take their departure. But if they knew how to perpetuate their youth, they would not leave this planet just when we needed them the most, and when they could serve us to the greatest advantage. Oh, wow. They would not leave this planet just when we needed them the most. Because I'm a firm believer that each and every single one of us could create our own spaceship and get out of here. Why not? They built a rocket and went to the moon. You know, all we need to do is learn how to make it happen. You know, Ford created an automobile when everybody else was still riding their horses. They had no conception of anything like that being possible, but this guy believed that it was possible, and then boom, now we have a bunch of cars. You know, there is no limit to what we can do. We all have the universe within us, and we all have the power of the universe within us to create whatever it is that we want to create. We just need to learn how. The great majority of the great minds leave their work upon earth unfinished, not because they have to, but because it is a habit they have inherited from the race, and the loss that the race must annually sustain through the perpetuation of this habit is almost incomprehensible. The gain that the world will realize when great minds learn to stay young until they have finished their work will be extraordinary, to say the least. It requires great ideas and great deeds to advance the world, but great ideas often spring from great ideas spring only from great minds. Therefore, great minds should remain upon the earth as long as they have something great to do. So, let's keep learning how to perpetuate our youth, so we could be here as long as we can, so we could continue to help as many people as we can. Remember, Creator, you have the ability to create whatever it is that you want. You are as great as the greatest, but remember that everybody is your equal. Okay, there is something here for you to do. Okay, figure it out, whatever it is that you want to do. Go within yourself, decide what it is that I want to do. Who am I as a person? Who do I see myself as? Okay, because who I see myself as ultimately is going to be who, you know, the direction I want to move in. If you're not moving in the direction you see yourself moving into, you're not growing, and you're not going to be happy. But when you are moving in that direction you see yourself going, or when you move in the direction you see yourself as, you will be happy, because then you're moving towards what you want to be. Hey. The same is true of lesser minds. When they begin to know enough to live a life worthwhile on this planet, they pass away. While they are mere amateurs on the stage of life, they are with us. When they begin to become artists, they are with us no more. But it is not right. It means a great loss every day, both to the race in general and to each individual in particular. The perpetuation of youth would prevent this loss, and herein we find another conclusive reason why everybody should learn to stay young. When the average person has gained sufficient knowledge and experience to appreciate the real value of those things that give quality, worth, and real joy to life, he is too old, too weak, or too tired to enjoy them. When his mind is sufficiently developed to partake of the rich feast that the art of man is placing before him, he is too infirm to partake of anything. When he has gained sufficient insight to understand the marvels of nature, his senses are dimmed, and the gorgeous splendor of the universe can charm him no more. His loss is great, but if he knew how to stay young, his gain could hardly be measured. If youth could be retained and life prolonged, we should find more time to live and enjoy every moment. And every moment would be one of contentment and joy. The nervous rush of the strenuous life would cease, because we would realize that there was sufficient time to do everything we wanted to do, and that we could take time to give quality, worth, and superiority to every product that is shaped by our hands. So just from what we were reading already, and from everything that we have already learned already, if I were to already jump into what I believe he might end up talking about is simply the way we're thinking, because remember, thinking is what sets mind in motion. Okay, when we think about a certain thing, our mind moves in that direction. Okay, its vibrations move towards that direction. Okay, whatever it is that you're vibrating, your body responds to it. And remember, all form is nothing but a rate of vibration, and that form in turn will change itself to match according to that specific vibration. So if I am to guess, he's going to be talking about, thinking young, thinking a specific way in order to actually perpetuate your youth and staying young. We would not only work for quantity, but also for quality. Everything in life would consequently become far richer, and we should also have the time to enjoy this greater richness. The habit of passing through life in a nervous rush comes originally from the belief that life is so short. We wish to accomplish as much as possible before age and infirmity begin, and rush becomes the order of the day. It is a habit, however, that produces nothing but loss, and that is one thing that I want to talk about. And one thing that I also want to mention is that just last night I was with my brother and we were watching that movie Sully. It was a great movie, and it's based on a true story. And I remember the story and remember the incident that it happened. I was actually in 8th grade in Truman Middle School when it happened, and the teacher was playing it on the news that this guy, this pilot, he ended up crashing the airplane. After they took off in the airplane, there was 155 passengers on board, and right after they took off, there was a huge swarm of birds, a lot of birds that just ran into him, and it shot out both of the jet engines, and then none of the engines were working. So what the captain had to do, he didn't have enough thruster or power to make it back towards the landway, and if they tried, he would have ended up crashing into all of those buildings. But what he ended up doing was landing in the Hudson River. And the biggest thing I got from watching this guy in this movie was how calm he was through all of this procedure. He was not in a hurry, and he was calm. He stayed poised in whatever it is he was doing. Because remember how we've learned about poise and power, that when we're calm, okay, and our mind is in a state of calmness, its energies are more spread out. It's more aware of its environment. But when we're angry or when we're frustrated about something or when we're in a hurry, okay, our mind forces are contracted because it's trying to do something, but being in a hurry to do something only creates more loss. And I brought up that movie Sully because what he said in that movie, and he says, dang it, how did it go? But he was talking about hurry. Yes, he says you can accomplish anything when you're not in a hurry. You can accomplish anything when you're not in a hurry. And I also want to talk about a little bit about Wallace D. Wattles when he talked about hurry and habit in his book, The Science of Being Great. And he says, and he talks about, hurrying. That hurrying is a negative thing, because when you move into a state of hurry, your mind is bent. It's not in unity with natural law, because natural law works in synchronicity and God works with patience. But if we're not patient with whatever it is that we're doing, we're not going to be, yeah, you get the point. You get the picture. I know you do, because we're all geniuses. Creator. It is a habit, however, that produces nothing but loss. More mistakes, troubles, and ills come from nervous rush than from all other adverse causes combined. The same habit is responsible for a great deal of inferior work, as well as for broken down human systems. It is the verdict of exact science that work can harm no one, that it is the nervous rush so frequently associated with work that wrecks the mind and body of man. It's not the work itself, but what you're thinking about whatever it is that you're working. But this habit will immediately cease when we learn to stay young. When we realize that youth can be retained for an indefinite period, we shall undertake more and consequently accomplish more. We shall never fear failure, because there will be sufficient time to try again and again until the goal in view has been reached. We shall not, however, become negligent or indifferent, because the life of the vigor of youth will give us ambitions without bonds. Yes, everything he's talking about right now, he's bringing it up to the point of thinking a certain way, not being in a hurry to do things, just being patient with it and doing it, poisely, calmly, and powerfully. The majority of those who fail because they fear failure, and they fear failure principally because they subconsciously believe the time of action to be limited. There are very few, there is no hurry to whatever it is that you want to do. Just take your time. There are very few who undertake as much as they are competent to carry through, and the reason is they think life is too short in which to complete the greater undertaking. It is therefore evident that everybody would proceed to do what they were fully competent to do if they knew that they could stay young until their work has finished. To be just to himself, man must be and do all that he can be and do. But before he will naturally undertake everything that he feels competent to carry through, he must be convinced that he will have sufficient time to complete his work, and this conviction he will gain when he learns to stay young, when he learns to not be in a hurry, when he learns that he has time to do things. To those who desire to develop the greater possibilities that are latent within them, the perpetuation of youth becomes actually indispensable. To unfold the greatness of mind and soul, the personality must become a more and more perfect instrument of expression. But that personality that is growing older every year is becoming less and less efficient as an instrument of mind and soul. Therefore, those who desire to promote their higher development must learn to stay young. The most important reasons why man should learn to stay young is found in the fact that the perpetuation of youth is in perfect harmony with the purpose of life, with natural law. Continuous advancement is the purpose of life, but only those elements in life that stay young can advance. The age-producing process is a deteriorating process, directly opposed to the advancing process. The two, therefore, cannot abide in the same person, or at the same time in the same consciousness. If the age-producing process continues, advancement will cease, retrogression will begin, and it has been conclusively demonstrated that retrogression, or retarded progress, is the original cause of all the ills in the world. To promote continuous advancement is to emancipate the individual from the ills that may exist in his system, but to promote continuous advancement it is necessary also to promote the perpetuation of youth. Therefore, to secure complete emancipation, man must learn to stay young. The further development of the faculties and talents of the mind, as well as the functions of the personality, demand the perpetuation of youth. It is not possible to improve that which is growing old, because the age-producing process ossifies, deadens, weakens, and deteriorates everything in which has been gained a foothold. The power of genius demands a young, vigorous personality if it is to give full expression to the highest order of mental brilliancy. It is only a fine instrument that can respond to a fine mind, but to be fine, the instrument must contain the qualities of youth. The greatest obstacle in extraordinary talent and rare genius is a tendency of the brain to ossify with the passing of the years, and the cause of this tendency is found wholly in the age-producing process. This process, however, will disappear when we learn to stay young. When we learn to stay young, the passing of the years will not decrease the brilliancy of the mind, nor cause the power of genius to wane. Instead, every active faculty will become greater and greater the longer we may continue to live. Now that is the end of our introduction. We're going to go ahead and end this video right here. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. We still have tons to go over, especially when it comes with this book. And like we've been saying before, it sounds like how to stay young is determined by a specific way of thinking. Okay, never being in a hurry to do things. Okay, that is one thing that we have picked up from what he's soon to be talking about, and we're going to be going over pretty soon. So next is chapter 1, and it is entitled, According to Exact Science, Man Can Do Whatever He Learns to Do, and He Can Learn Anything. Now that in turn also sounds like a very interesting title. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, creator. Please subscribe, because we have tons of more information to go through. So with all that being said, I'll see you guys pretty soon.